Mr. Which gets trashed here. You got to see this scene. Not trash, but
Had just indicated to us that it's absolutely normal for the federal government not to deliver all programs, that it's very typical and indeed very effective for us to actually go to a number of nonprofits to actually deliver programs. So, for example, food security programs, which is very big in Davenport, the Community Food Centres of Canada would deliver that. And I wonder whether you agree that in some cases it is more effective for us for the public servants to actually work with various nonprofits to deliver programs.
Yeah, thank you. Certainly from time to time, it probably would be advantageous for the government and for those nonprofits to do such work. But the oversight of that work still has to be maintained within the public service. And I would suggest that what you're saying should be the exception rather than the norm, for sure. Because as I said, why would you want to contract out anything outside of the federal public service, outside the accountable, transparent, capable public service? And normally, with a few exceptions, normally that work cannot be done more efficiently once you contract it out.
And back to you, Ms. Sirowitz, but move your mic. It's a bad mic day, not a bad hair day. So move your mic out a little. It's popping. Okay,
Mr. Chair, I had about two minutes of statements put to me, and I never had an opportunity to respond to them before it was turned to another speaker. Can I have an opportunity to respond to the various assertions that were put to me?
Yes, you can answer, and then we'll give Julie her last question. Go ahead.
Thank you. So the suggestion that there's a difference of opinion with respect to the payment of volunteers, I'd like to say, first off, if I was allocating a $900 million program, I wouldn't want to be resting on a difference of opinion as to the legality of it. But when we're talking about this difference of opinion about whether it's okay to pay volunteers, let's be clear about what we're talking about. We're talking about Johnny is coming into the shelter to help people, and he has to take the bus here. Is it okay if we pay for a bus pass for him, or can we buy him some tokens? Susie is coming to help us with our charity barbecue. Can we feed her afterwards? Can we give some sort of small token to reward her? We're not talking about it in the scope of giving students $5,000 at $10 per hour or less. Not these sort of massive structured sub-minimum wage payments. Like this is not within the scope of the debate.
Well, the witnesses today are much more critical of this. They're not sitting there defending it as much as yesterday or prior.
Why is this being contracted out? Why should any federal program be contracted outside, as I said, of the capable, accountable, transparent federal public service?
Okay. The Canada Student Service Grant, it's your position that the public service could have administered this program in a timely manner. Do I understand you correctly in that regard?
Yes, Mr. Cooper, absolutely. I mean, the public service right now administers hundreds of grants, everything from agriculture to scientific research. And certainly, I think we demonstrated very clearly during the outstart of this pandemic that we were able to adapt very quickly, such as as I said, the Canada Emergency Response Benefit. How quickly we were able to get that out the door. So I think the public service has proven itself very capable, accountable, and certainly absolutely been able to administer this program.
And consistent with that, the public service already administers a wide variety of programs targeted at youth. Is that not correct?
Yes, it is, absolutely. I mean, there are a number of programs for students and for youth, as well as you pointed out, that are administered within the federal public service.
And that would include matching youth with not-for-profits. Obviously, the Canada Summer Jobs Program comes to mind.
Yes, exactly, and I made reference of that in my statement. Sure.
And so, what do you say in response to Ms. Wernick's testimony from the other day, in which she said, and I quote, "The pandemic was also impacting the capacity of the department, meaning ESDC, for any form of direct delivery, close quote. What do you say in response to that?
I mean, I'm not too sure what the basis of that statement may have been. I'm not privy to that. All I can say is that we have demonstrated throughout this pandemic that the public service certainly are very capable of being able to produce programs and being able to benefit Canadians when in times like this. And as I said, I'm very confident that within the public service that this new student service grant would have been administered with very little complexity to it, and certainly with transparency and ease. And again, I just want to reiterate about the accountability of doing it within the public service.
And in terms of testimony from Mr. Shugart earlier today, he cited reasons for going to a third party and claimed that only we supposedly had the ability to provide what he characterized as the full range of services under the program, including social media, matching, database information, and connecting not-for-profits, connecting with not-for-profits across Canada. Do you have anything to say in response to that?
Of the things that you just listed,
Yes.
Mr. Cooper, I can't see any of those not being able to be performed within the federal public service.
Okay. And why do you say that?
Because they already are. They already are administering such things as you just announced.
Okay. And isn't it the case that the public civil service has actually provided, as you noted, a rapid response to a number of COVID-related procurement projects, and did so with open competition?
I mean, absolutely. We certainly did a very quick turnaround, as I said, on CERB, absolutely, and including the emergency wage subsidy as well. Those two programs were delivered by federal public sector workers, as I said, seamlessly, I believe.
And I'm looking at another program, Innovation, Science, and Economic Development. Request for proposals was issued in respect of the economic impact of the pandemic. Proposals were issued, closing date of 6 days, and 20 companies submitted bids, and within a few days, the winner was announced. So there are many examples, are there not?
I can't comment specifically on what you just announced. But
that's fair enough. But would you say? I think it's significant that you note that it's 3 months later and we still don't have a program.
Yes, which is obviously the only people who that is being detrimental to, of course, are the students who are relying on this program.
Now, I want to turn a little bit now to contribution agreements. Would you say, in your experience, that it would be normal for a contribution agreement of this size, dealing with the large amounts of money that would be administered, to do this without any kind of competitive process?
Well, as I said, I mean, when the Prime Minister announced that We Charity was the only organization capable, and then you look and realize that $43.5 million was being given to We to ensure that they were able to administer the program, one would have to question that. Absolutely.
And you know,
question, Michael, but will you raise your mic a little bit? The interpreters are just there. That's better. Great.
Well, are you aware of any program of this sort that is provided by way of a third party? You noted in your testimony that a $900 million program to source this out to a third party was unusual. Could you elaborate on that?
Well, as I said, I mean, with this kind of program, it's already being administered within the federal public service, along with many others as well. So when we seen that this particular one was being contracted out, we had to ask why. Why is this being contracted out? Why should any federal program be contracted outside, as I said, of the capable, accountable, transparent federal public service?
Okay.
How is it that politicians that make 100 and something thousand a year can't afford to buy a $200 mic? I don't understand why we can't hear them clearly, why there's always an echo, it's always this. I don't get it. Leave your comments below. Check out this scene.
Made to Canada summer jobs. It just the more we ask questions, the more I think there are additional questions that come up in this absolute debacle. Mr. Alward, I'd like to come back to the issue of contracting out. The fact that we have a professional public service, members of the Public Service Alliance of Canada, ready, willing to implement, already have the procedures in place, already know the protocols and how to proceed. What is the impact when the federal government contracts out such a massive program, $1 billion program, without any due diligence at all? And without any due regard to minimum wage laws, to labor standards, all of the things that we're talking about today?
Well, it's demoralizing to the members. It's demoralizing to the employees when they see that sort of thing happening. Would have it caused job loss? No, I wouldn't go as far as saying that. But still, to see work that is currently being done, very, very, very similar work for sure. I mean, there's obviously a priority there with the type of work, and to see that being contracted out, I mean, that is demoralizing for federal public sector workers to see that.
Back to 5-minute rounds, Mr. Barrett, followed by Mr. McLeod. Michael? Yeah. Can't hear you for some reason. There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we got you now.
Okay, perfect. Let me just make sure that's okay. And I want to start by thanking Mr. Alward and his members with respect to the administration of the Canada Summer Jobs program. In my riding of Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, and Rideau Lakes, I can tell you that the program was oversubscribed. It was launched. Late, and of course, with all of the due to a government announcement and with all the challenges of COVID-19, there were a lot of moving pieces. But there were a record number of employers that were approved, and we were absolutely flooded with employment positions. So I appreciate your testimony, Mr. Alward. And I'm going to turn my first question to Mr. Lapointe. There are public reports, including an interview with the managing director of Charity Intelligence, that detail the sudden resignation or replacement of the board at the WE organization. In your experience in this sector, is that?
Dans votre expérience dans ce secteur, est-ce inhabituel? I would ask you to repeat the question because I tried to move to French and I missed what the interpreter said. I'm sorry.
Go just if you could refer to the question part again, Michael. There was a problem with translation.
Okay. To Mr. Lapointe, there are public reports, including reporting on an interview with the managing director for Charity Intelligence, that detail the sudden resignation or replacement of nearly the entire board at the WE organization. In your experience, is this unusual?
La réponse, est-ce que c'est...
My answer, is this unusual? Yes, it is unusual, and it's a concern. If this information is true, that is, that all the members of a board resigned in a due diligence process, it's something that must be on the radar because the board has two roles, a strategic role, of course, but also a fiduciary role. One expects from a board a certain stability, a certain competency in order to make sure that the organization is well governed. Resignation of all members, not necessarily after agreeing, but resigning at the same time, is something that's rare and concerning.
And look at governance models for not-for-profits. Does that model typically include a for-profit arm and a not-for-profit arm of the same organization, where the not-for-profit pays the for-profit for services?
A formula where there's a link between two organizations, one that's a charity and the other is not, is a model that exists. We see this occasionally. But I would underline one thing. The organization that is not a charity is not necessarily a for-profit organization. It could be another not-for-profit organization that has commercial activities in order to go and get funds to help the charity. I'm not saying this to mix things up, but the me to we, is it a charity or not? What I'm saying is that for-profit organizations that have a link to charities is not a usual arrangement. What we have is that not-for-profit that is not a charity, but that is close to a charity.
Mr. Baird?
Okay, my last question again to Mr. Lapointe is, for not-for-profits and their influencing of public policy, would they generally register as lobbyists? To Mr. Lapointe.
Mr. Lapointe, do you want to answer that?
Oui, la loi.
Answer. The Act on Lobbying stipulates that one who has important lobbying activities with government authorities, whether this person is in the profit or not.
There needs to be a sound course. I don't care about the visual. I can't hear it. I have this on full. We have this on full blast. It's despicable.
Was the director
the sound
of
is awful.
Not-for-profits.
And hey, we're running on a shoestring and our sound's better. That kind of says something. Yet again, we have more questions than answers. At least some things were answered, but there's a lot more to the story. We really need to know who initiated this, and we all think we know. Leave the comments below, and always have a good day.